You're tuned into Collateral Damage, the military families FAP and IDC leave behind. Voices have been altered, because in this system, honesty has a price. Let's jump into Episode 11, Military Family Advocacy Gone Wrong, Falsely Accused and Isolated.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take source material that you, our listeners, send in. Could be articles, personal stories, anything really, and we just dig into it.
Yeah, we try to pull out the key takeaways, the stuff that really matters, so you get the core insights without all the legwork.
Exactly. And today we're honing in on just one source. It's an online post, a personal story from someone recounting their experience with the military's Family Advocacy Program, FAP, and the command actions that followed.
And the key thing here, the perspective, is from someone who was accused within that system.
Right. So our goal today isn't to judge the system overall, but really just to unpack what this specific person described. Their events, the challenges they faced, the frustrations they reported.
We're focusing on the details they shared about the process and how it impacted them. It's a look at this, complex situation through one individual's eyes.
Okay, so let's get into it. According to this person's account, this whole thing kicked off on September 27th. That's when an unrestricted report was made to FAP.
And the classification of that initial report, as stated in the source, was emotional abuse against an intimate partner.
Now, right away, the impact described is, well, pretty significant. He states that his wife's command put a no-contact order, an NCO, on her.
Right. And he reported that this order basically stopped them from talking or, trying to work things out together, like going to counseling as a couple.
Yeah, he felt it blocked any collaboration.
And then there were issues with seeing their daughter almost immediately, according to this account. He reported his wife restricted access pretty heavily.
Initially wanting no visits at all.
Yeah, first no visits, then later asking for supervised visits. But he notes in the post that this initial restriction didn't have formal legal or command backing at that point.
Okay, but here's a detail he emphasizes, something that seems a bit maybe odd on the surface.
Yeah.
He says that even though FAP and the commander apparently knew all the details from day one, September 27th, and even though he was apparently in contact with FAP himself, about once a week, he says, no restrictions were put on him. Not about seeing his daughter, not about contact, nothing during that whole initial period.
And he actually points to a specific regulation in his post-Marine Corps order, 1754.11a. He says FAP is required by this order to do risk assessments, when a report comes in, and also with subsequent contacts.
Okay.
Yet, according to his account, from September 27th right up until November 22nd, apparently no threat was identified regarding him. That's what he reports.
So weeks go by with him having contact, no restrictions. Then what?
Then comes October 27th. He describes returning to the home they shared. He mentions he was still paying rent there, but he left earlier to give her space.
Voluntarily left, right?
Yeah, voluntarily. And he states there was nothing legally or from command preventing him being there, especially since that first NCO on his wife had been lifted.
And why did he go back?
He says it was agreed beforehand with his wife that he could see his daughter. When he got there, he also stated he planned to move his stuff back in and live there again.
Okay. And how did that go down, according to him?
His wife called the military police, the MPs. He reports the MPs came, assessed things, decided no one was in danger, but asked him to leave anyway to sort of de-escalate the situation.
And did he?
He says he complied, yeah. Left the premises.
So what was the fallout from that incident?
Well, according to his account, shortly after that, his command issued him an NCO.
Ah, okay. So now he has one too. What did it say?
This one prohibited him from contacting his wife, except for communication needed just for arranging daughter pickups and drop-offs.
And the reason given for this NCO, did he mention that?
Yes, he quotes it in his post. Apparently, it was to protect me by preventing her from having anything that she could misconstrue to her benefit.
Huh. So the stated reason was actually to protect him from potential misinterpretations by her.
That's what he reports, yeah. And he makes a point of saying this NCO, the one on him, did not require supervised visitation at this stage. That's a key detail he highlights.
Okay, so things are getting more complicated. Where does it go from there?
The next big date is November 22nd. That's when the Incident Determination Committee, the IDC, met.
Right, the IDC. And its job is what exactly, according to his understanding?
To look at the incident assessments.
Yeah.
Basically the statements or information gathered and decide if the case actually meets the criteria for the alleged abuse.
Got it. And how did that process go for him?
Well, this is where he reports a major roadblock. He states he He never actually gave his incident assessment, his side of the story, for the IDC.
Why not?
Because, he says, he couldn't get any specific details about what he was actually accused of doing. Just the general allegation, emotional abuse, the date the report was made, and a very broad time frame.
So no specific incidents or examples were provided to him?
Apparently not, according to his account. And he says both his command and legal advisors told him not to make a statement without those specifics, because he might misspeak or accidentally bring up things unrelated to the actual claims.
Okay. So if he didn't provide an assessment.
Then, as he describes it, the IDC only had his wife's assessment to go on, and based on that alone, the IDC determined that, yes, the case did meet the criteria for emotional abuse against intimate partner.
Wow. Okay. And what happened immediately after that decision?
Command action followed swiftly, according to his post. A new NCO was issued to him.
Another one. What changed this time?
This one was a big change. It mandated that all his visits with his daughter had to be supervised.
By whom?
By a staff NCO, that's a staff non-commissioned officer or a commissioned officer. So suddenly, unsupervised contact was completely off the table.
That's a huge shift. Did he explain how that supervision was supposed to work?
Well, that's where he describes another major problem cropping up. He reports that his wife's chain of command apparently said flat out, nope, we're not providing supervisors.
Oh, so who would supervise?
His own SNCOs and officers were reportedly willing to step up. But then, according to his post, a new concern emerged. What if they became targets of accusations just by being there?
The supervisors themselves could be at risk.
That was the fear, as he describes it. So, he says his battalion commander ended up delegating the task of figuring out the exact responsibilities for supervisors. Interestingly, he notes the spirit of this new, stricter NCO was still described to him as being ultimately about protecting him from false accusations.
That seems complicated. Protect him by requiring supervision that's hard to arrange and potentially risky for the supervisors.
That's the situation he describes, yeah. But then, something else happened right after that IDC meeting.
What now?
According to his post, a completely new FAP case was opened against him, immediately.
A second case?
For what? This time the allegation was emotional abuse of child.
Based on what? New information?
This is what he found particularly baffling. He reports his FAP care coordinator told him that during the IDC process for the first case, FAP basically went back and reread the exact same information they already had.
The initial report and his wife's assessment?
Yes, the very same stuff. And based on that re-review, they decided to open this second case, the child abuse allegation. He points out this seemed to directly contradict what he'd been told earlier about needing specific examples for the first case.
So, same info? New case opened right after the first one was decided.
That's his account, and this brought up serious questions for him about due process.
I can imagine. What did FAP or legal say about that?
He reports being told, both verbally by FAP and by citing the regulations like the MCO and UCMJ, that formal due process rights, like the right to see all the evidence against you, well, they don't fully apply here.
Why?
Because the explanation he received was that an IDC isn't a court-martial. It's considered an administrative process, not a disciplinary or judicial one. So those specific legal protections, according to what he was told, weren't guaranteed in the same way.
So he felt actions were being taken that deeply affected his life and his relationship with his daughter, but he couldn't see the specific evidence used.
Exactly. He acknowledges these actions aren't technically punitive under the definition, but he describes them as causing immense, undue psychological stress and hardships.
Okay, so faced with all this, what did he do? Did he just accept it?
No, according to his account, he tried to push back. He says he looked up the official Department of Defense criteria for emotional abuse against an intimate partner and felt that his wife's actions actually fit the description. So he made an unrestricted report against her.
A counter report. Okay, what happened with that?
His post says that just days later, his case manager told him it wasn't going anywhere. No IDC would be held for his report because it was determined somehow that it didn't meet the criteria.
So his wife's report led to an IDC and mandated supervision, but his counter report, based on the same criteria, was dismissed.
That's the outcome he describes experiencing, yes.
Did he seek legal help through all this?
He did. He mentions consulting a military defense lawyer back in the U.S., someone who had actually been an IDC member before.
What was their advice?
Reportedly, the lawyer advised him to definitely make a formal statement for the new child abuse allegation assessment. But interestingly, they also recommended he stop going to FAP treatment.
Stop treatment? Why?
Because, according to the Post, this lawyer believed FAP doesn't really prioritize the well-being or rights of the person being accused.
Did he try to get official military legal help, like from JAG?
Yes, he says he tried, but ran into another hurdle. His wife had apparently already gone to the JAG office and established a client relationship.
Conflict of interest.
Exactly, so they couldn't represent him. He says he was referred to a different legal office that could help, but at the time he wrote the post, he was still waiting to hear back from them.
So, wrapping up his account, where did things stand when he wrote this?
The situation he described was sort of in limbo. He said command had put some provisions in place to try and protect potential supervisors, which might make it easier for his SNCOs or officers to actually do the supervision.
Okay, so maybe a path forward for visits.
Potentially. But the main sticking point he reported was that his wife was allegedly not cooperating or even responding to his attempts to schedule the supervised visitation that the NCO required.
Wow. Okay. So to recap this single account we've unpacked, it starts with a report, initially no restrictions on him, then an incident leads to an NCO on him, but without supervision.
Right. Then the IDC happens. He doesn't provide his assessment due to lack of specifics. The case is substantiated based only on his wife's account, leading to a new NCO mandating supervision.
Which is then hard to arrange. And immediately after, a second case for child abuse is opened based on the same information FAP already had.
Then his counter-report gets dismissed, and he faces challenges getting the legal help he wants, while visitation remains stalled due to alleged non-cooperation.
It's quite a sequence of events, as he describes it.
Absolutely. And again, we have to stress this deep dive was focused only on the experience detailed by this one individual in their online post. It's their perspective on navigating the FAP system during a very difficult time.
Yeah, and their account really zeroes in on specific points of friction they encountered, feeling like they didn't get enough information to defend themselves, the practical problems and worries tied to mandated supervision, the different outcomes for their report versus their wife's report, and the difficulties with legal access.
It provides a very specific, ground-level view of how these processes played out for him.
So for you listening, this gives you a detailed look at one reported journey through a complex system.
And thinking only about the challenges raised in this particular account, it does leave you wondering, doesn't it? How can systems that are set up with vital protective goals, like FAP aims to have, also ensure there's enough transparency and clarity in the process for everyone involved, considering the kinds of hurdles this one person reported facing?
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more real stories and critical insight into the failures of the Military Family Advocacy Program. You won't want to miss what's coming next.